So I've decided to come up with a brand new challenge. I'm going to let TikTok decide what Pokemon team I take through the Kanto Pokemon Elite Four. So I'm not going to have any say over what Pokemon I use. It's going to be completely random. One of those random Pokemon like filters that just completely throws out different Pokemon. Obviously, because it's on Let's Go and we're doing Gen 1. And depending on how well this video does, I might do other generations as other filters become available on TikTok. So I'm going to start with Gen 1 because it's like the most obvious one. I'm going to go through Let's Go Pikachu's Elite Four. So obviously only Gen 1 Pokemon are going to be in this. But yeah, this should be fun. Let's see what Pokemon I get for this challenge. Alright, let's see what Pokemon I'm going to have to use for this challenge then. Charmander, okay. Kakuna. Spearow. Lickitung, alright, we're getting somewhere. Krabby, not getting in. Victory Bell, okay. So there we have it, we've got the team. So I'm just going to run through the team and show you what sets I'm going with. So, if we go to Krabby. I've already done all this, so this Krabby I moved over from Pokemon Go. I put Bubble Beam and Crabhammer on it for some strong stab moves. Decided to put Protect on there because it's always useful, and Superpower for some good fighting type coverage, which is always helpful. Victory Bell doesn't really have a lot of a move pool in Let's Go, so I've put Poison Jab and Mega Drain on it as its main attacking moves, and then Stun Spore and Sleep Powder in case I actually need them for some coverage. On Spearow, I've put Drill Run because if I ever come across any rock or electric types, I've at least got a fighting chance against those. So ground type move on Spearow is pretty good. Drill Peck for its main stab attack. Got Mirror Move in case the AI uses any move I could do with using against them, and Roost for some HP recovery as well. On Lickitung, it's basically my all-encompassing coverage Pokemon, so I've got Thunderbolt on it for some good electric type move. Shadow Ball on it mainly for Agatha, Toxic for some stalling if I ever need it, and Ice Beam as well. Kakuna is kind of useless with the only move being Harden, so the only use this thing's going to have is trying to outlast a Pokemon that has a status effect on it, like Poison or Burn. So that's kind of the only role Kakuna could potentially have on this team. It was the hardest one to actually think of a role for it on this. And then on Charmander, I've got Fire Punch and Flamethrower for its main stab attacks. And then I've also got Will-O-Wisp for some status inflicting move, obviously to help Kakuna if I need it. And Dragon Pulse as well for a non-fire type strong attacking move. So those are the Pokemon I've got heading into this as determined by TikTok. So, we'll go into this now then. So starting things off, we're up against Lorelei first, the first member of the Elite Four, sitting on top of her Lapras there. I did check Cerebi, so I know what order they're going to be sending their Pokemon out in. So my starting Pokemon was built to accommodate for that. She's going to start off with her Dugong, which means I've got Krabby coming in first. None of her moves on her Dugong are going to do any damage to Krabby, but Krabby does have Superpower, which is a fighting type move, which is good against Ice type Pokemon. So I managed to take out a Dugong in one hit. Next, I switched Krabby out because the next Pokemon coming in was going to be Lapras, a bulky Pokemon, and Lickitung is the only Pokemon on my team that has a super effective move against Lapras. Also, the fact that Lickitung is already bulky as well. I could have kept Krabby in and kept using Superpower, which I suppose would have also been super effective on Lapras as well, but it's nowhere near as bulky as Lickitung. Thankfully, the first Hydro Pump does miss, and Lickitung does hit Thunderbolt, which doesn't do a lot of damage, but I did get a free move because of the fact that Hydro Pump did miss the first time. Unfortunately, he doesn't miss the second time, but Lickitung is bulky as hell, so it did manage to tank that. Second Thunderbolt takes Lapras down to yellow. Lapras switches strats now to hit me with a Blizzard, which Lickitung does tank. I'm now down to the yellow. Third Thunderbolt later, and Lapras is down. She's going to switch in her Jinx next, which means I switched out Lickitung to send in Charmander. While Lickitung does have Shadow Ball, which would have been super effective against Jinx, I did feel like her Jinx was probably going to outspeed Lickitung and take it out. So I decided to cut out the middleman there and send in Charmander. And one Flamethrower later showed exactly why that's a good idea, because I took out a Jinx in one move. Then I did the same thing to her Cloyster, the very next Pokemon, with a Flamethrower. While its water typing would normally resist fire, it does have the ice typing, which makes Flamethrower neutral against Cloyster. And her next Pokemon in was Alolan Sandslash, which is an ice and steel type Pokemon, which makes it 4 times weak to fire, which means I took it out with another Flamethrower. I did switch Charmander out here because of the fact that it doesn't really have any moves that would be good against Slowbro. because of its water typing and the fact that it doesn't have an ice typing to cancel out the resistance to fire. So I sent out Lickitung because it does have Shadow Ball and Thunderbolt as two different options I could use against Slowbro. I went for Thunderbolt to try and get the paralysis, because if I can get the paralysis on Slowbro, I'd be going to be able to move faster than him in the next turn. Didn't get the paralysis. Psychic manages to take Lickitung down to 3 health. So I managed to get off another Thunderbolt on Slowbro, which takes it down to red health. Unfortunately, it's not enough to knock out, and Slowbro does knock out my Lickitung with a second Psychic. So next I sent in Spearow. Slowbro is so low on health I decided to just send in a Pokemon that can outspeed it, hit it with a Drill Peck, take out Slowbro, and Lorelei is now defeated. Moving on to the second member of the Elite Four now, we got Bruno. I know he's going to start off with his Onix, so I decided not to switch my lead in, because Krabby is the perfect choice to go up against Onix in this. Considering the fact that it's a rock and ground type, it's weak to both fighting type moves and water type moves. So we see there he's starting off with his Onix. I'm going to start off with my Krabby. I decided to go for Bubble Beam considering the fact that both rock and ground type Pokemon are weak to water, so it's 4 times weak to water type moves. And Bubble Beam manages to take out Onix in one hit. I switch out Krabby here to send in Spearow because he's going to switch in his Hitmonchan. So I did want a flying type Pokemon to sort of tank his fighting type moves and do super effective damage in return. And Drill Peck manages to one hit KO his Hitmonchan. And the same thing happens to his Hitmonlee as well. Now next, Bruno sent in his Alolan Golem, which is a rock and electric type Pokemon, which are both weak to ground, which means that Golem is 4 times weak to ground type moves. So I just thought the Drill Run would actually take out his Golem. It did just over half his health, and a Thunder Punch manages to take out my Spearow. I did think I was going to be able to one-hit KO his Golem as well, but that was not the case. But Krabby manages to come in and get the revenge kill, thanks to a superpower, considering the fact that Golem's rock typing makes it weak to fighting. Up next, I sent in Lickitung to go against his Poliwrath, which is a bad idea in hindsight. I forgot about the fact that Poliwrath is part fighting type, and just saw Lickitung's Thunderbolt. As you saw there, that superpower almost took out my Lickitung. Thunderbolt did a decent amount of damage, but his Poliwrath does outspeed, and the second superpower did take out Lickitung. However, each time he does superpower, his attack and his defense fall, which makes it a perfect target then for my Victory Bell to come in and use Mega Drain, as that's probably the Pokemon I should have sent in first instead of Lickitung. Completely forgot about the fact that fighting type moves are super effective against Lickitung. Up next, he brings out his Machamp. I hit it with a Poison Jab. It hits me with a surprise Ice Punch. Did not think it was going to have that, but a second Poison Jab later takes out his Machamp, and we've taken out Bruno. That's 2 members of the Elite Four down already. Up next, we've got Agatha, the one that I've been dreading the most because of the fact that I've got so few counters to her Pokemon and so many Pokemon that are actually weak to hers. So this was not going to be the easiest experience. She sends out Arbok first. I send in Spearow, considering the fact that Spearow has a ground type move which is good against poison types. Drill Run manages to do just over half of Arbok's health. It responds with a Poison Jab, which takes out a decent amount of Spearow's health and poisons me. But a second Drill Run manages to take out Arbok. While Drill Run probably would have been good against Weezing as well, there's no guarantee I would have outsped or knocked it out, considering the fact that it doesn't have Levitate as an ability in this game. I decided switching Charmander, because even though Charmander does not have a super effective move, with how weak and the fact that Spearow was actually poisoned, I decided not to keep it in. So I decided to do neutral Flamethrowers, considering how high Charmander's special attack actually is. Flamethrower did quite a bit of damage, taking Weezing all the way down to yellow and burned it as well. Weezing responded with a Sludge Bomb, which did hardly any, but did poison Charmander. Weirdly, she did switch out her Weezing to send in an Alola Marowak, which is going to resist the Flamethrower that I had ready for it, considering the fact that Alola Marowak is part Fire type. So I decided to do the same thing and switch in Krabby, although it did do quite a bit of damage with that Flamethrower, to be fair, even though it did resist it. But obviously with Krabby coming in, I've tanked a Rock Slide from Marowak and managed to take it out with a super effective Crab Hammer. Next, she'd bring Wheezing back in. I managed to take it out with a Bubble Beam. Thanks to all the damage that Charmander had already done to Wheezing. Gengar comes in next and hits Krabby with a Sludge Bomb, which completely wrecks it. I tried to bring in Spearow to try and outspeed and hit Drill Run, which would have been super effective on Gengar, but Sludge Bomb did outspeed and knocked out my Spearow. It outspeeds Lickitung as well and does quite a bit of damage with the Sludge Bomb. I managed to get in a Shadow Ball on Gengar, which takes it down to red. Weirdly, it goes for a Will-O-Wisp rather than another Sludge Bomb, which does burn, but does allow me to hit the Shadow Ball again to knock out a Gengar. So anyway, her Gengar is now knocked out. And she brings out another Gengar, so that's fun. I managed to get off another Shadow Ball after she hit me with a Sludge Bomb from this Gengar. But the burn does take out my Lickitung. I send out Victory Bell in the hopes of just doing some neutral damage. Sludge Bomb hits Victory Bell for a decent amount of damage. Poison Jab does hardly anything to a Gengar, but does get it down to red. I go for a Mega Drain, but she switches out to Golbat. Unfortunately, it's going to 4 times resist my Mega Drain, so it's going to do hardly any damage to Golbat. She hits an Air Slash on Victory Bell, which does hardly any damage to say it's super effective. This is where I gambled. I needed to bring Charmander in to do some neutral, strong damage with Flamethrower, but I didn't want to switch it into an attack. So I decided to use Sleep Powder to put Golbat to sleep, to try and get a free switch in for Charmander. And it was pretty much then or never to try and get the Sleep Powder off, considering the fact that Golbat was probably going to take out Victory Bell, but it did work. I managed to get in the free switch, and I managed to knock out Golbat with the Fire Punch. She brings back in her Gengar, hits me with a Sludge Bomb, which does almost take out Charmander. It lives on 1. In the next turn, I do hit a Will-O-Wisp, which in hindsight I probably could have taken out with the Flamethrower, but the Sludge Bomb does take out my Charmander, as the last turn I did live on 1 HP. Gengar's almost dead. I decided to bring in Kakuna to fill the one role on this team, to at least say I've done it once in this challenge, that it's actually got the one use I have for Kakuna. It tanks a Shadow Ball, barely. I managed to get off a Harden. And the one role Kakuna has on this team, I managed to stall out Gengar for that one turn as it dies to the burn, which allows me to defeat Agatha. With Agatha out the way, it's time to take on the 4th member of the Elite Four, that being Lance, the so-called Dragon-type master, even though he only has 1 Dragon-type Pokemon on his team. He'll start off with Seadra, which is not a Dragon type, so I'm starting off with Victory Bell myself. Grass is obviously good against water, so I managed to take out Seadra with a Mega Drain. I did switch out from Victory Bell to Lickitung, considering the fact that his next Pokemon's a Alolan Exeggutor, which is a Dragon and Grass type, which means it's 4 times weak to Ice. However, his Exeggutor will outspeed and hit me with a Hyper Beam. But thankfully, Lickitung is a tanky bastard, and I only took about a quarter of my health, just over half maybe. And I responded back with an Ice Beam, which took out Exeggutor in 1 hit. Now, I kept Lickitung in for Aerodactyl, considering the fact that Aerodactyl is also 4 times weak to Ice, but his Aerodactyl did outspeed and hit me with a Rock Slide, which took me down to red. Ice Beam did hit, but unfortunately did not take out his Aerodactyl, took out just under half of his health. And then another Rock Slide from Aerodactyl would take out my Lickitung. Considering the fact that his Aerodactyl is part Rock type, I sent in Krabby so I can use Water type moves on Aerodactyl, and 1 Hyper Beam later, Krabby was able to tank it. And then I was able to take it out with the Crab Hammer. Now, I didn't have anything after Lickitung was taken out that was super effective against Gyarados, so I switched in Victory Bell, which would hopefully resist most of what Gyarados had. So 2 Poison Jabs later, I was able to take out his Gyarados after resisting that Iron Tail of his. Next, he'd send in his Dragonite, but I kept Victory Bell in because Poison Jab while neutral does quite a lot of damage. And I did outspeed Dragonite. Poison Jab did about half damage to it. Dragonite would use Outrage, which took Victory Bell down to green. Took it down to red even. And then another Poison Jab on Dragonite would take it out. Next, knowing that he was sending out his Charizard, I sent out Krabby to try and use a Water-type move against his Charizard. But one thing I wasn't expecting, he would end up Mega Revolving his Charizard into Mega Charizard X, which means it gains a Dragon typing, which means that my Water-type moves would now do neutral damage. Not that it mattered anyway, because Charizard completely outsped and hit me with a Dragon Pulse, completely knocking out my Krabby. I sent in Spearow hoping to outspeed. Now that it's not a flying type move, it is now susceptible to ground type moves. So I went for a drill run, but Charizard outsped my Spearow, hit me with a Flare Blitz, and completely knocked out my Spearow in one hit. There was literally just one choice left. I sent out Charmander. He's gained the Dragon typing, which makes him susceptible to Dragon type moves. I just needed to try and outspeed. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. He hit me with a Thunder Punch. Charmander did tank it. Thankfully, he didn't get the paralysis off. I hit him with the Dragon Pulse, and probably the most unlikely thing to happen so far. I ended up taking out almost 3/4 of its health to knock out Charizard. Mega Charizard X with one Dragon Pulse from a Charmander to take out Lance and to move on to defending my championship against the rival Trace. On to the last battle of this challenge now. We're taking on Trace, the rival of Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. And the final battle that I would need to do in order to pass this challenge. He sends out Pidgeot first, and I lead with Lickitung, considering the fact that I've got two moves that are super effective, so I've got a choice for those being Ice Beam and Thunderbolt. I decided to start off by using an Ice Beam on Pidgeot, hoping to outspeed, but he surprises me and immediately Mega Revolves his Pidgeot into Mega Pidgeot. And then outspeeds by using the U-turn as well to switch out his Pidgeot. Thankfully, I chose to use Ice Beam and not Thunderbolt because his next Pokemon will be Vileplume. Vileplume, obviously Grass type, resists Electric type moves, but is weak to Ice type moves. Ice Beam did just over half of its health. I managed to get off another Ice Beam as it's building up energy for Solar Beam, which took Vileplume down to red. Knowing that Solar Beam was going to outspeed and hit me in the next turn, I decided to switch to Victory Bell in order to resist the Solar Beam and for it to do as little damage as possible. Which is exactly what happened. As you see there, it did virtually no damage. He ended up full restoring his Vileplume, irritatingly. But while I had Victory Bell in, I decided to go for the Poison Jab, which is going to do neutral damage, but still took it down to red. And then the second Poison Jab managed to take out his Vileplume. Switching out my Victory Bell now to send out Spearow, as Ace would now send out his Rapidash. I figured Drill Run, a ground type move, would be good to use against Rapidash being a fire type. However, Rapidash would outspeed and take out my Spearow in one hit with the Flare Blitz. However, Flare Blitz also does recoil based on how much damage do you do to your opponent, so he did actually do quite a bit of damage to himself. So while he did take out my Spearow in one hit, he did quite a bit of damage to his Rapidash. I sent out Krabby, figuring the water typing would be good against Rapidash. He would use Flare Blitz again. This time virtually doing almost no damage to my Krabby. One Bubble Beam later, I took Rapidash down to red. Just about lived that. And then Rapidash would outspeed and use Flare Blitz again. Krabby would again tank it, obviously resisting the fire type move. But Rapidash would take itself out with the recoil. I switched into Victory Bell as he switched in his Jolteon. Jolteon hits the Thunder, but it does hardly any damage, obviously, because Grass resists Electric. A Mega Drain takes Jolteon down to about 3/4 of its health, while also regaining health for Victory Bell. weirdly, he'd swap out his Jolteon to send in Pidgeot. But thankfully, instead of going for another Mega Drain, I decided to go for a Poison Jab, so I was going to do neutral damage instead of him resisting the Mega Drain. Pidgeot would outspeed and go for an Air Slash, which Victory Bell did dodge. And then another Poison Jab later, I took down his Mega Pidgeot. I kept Victory Bell in against Slowbro, because even though my Poison typing is weak against his Psychic typing, my Grass typing is good against his Water. So I was hoping to outspeed, which I did, and hit him with a Mega Drain, which took Slowbro down by 3/4 of its health, and also fully stocked up Victory Bell's HP. Slowbro expectedly did follow up with a Psychic, which took Victory Bell down to just under half. And then I managed to outspeed a second time, but not before he managed to use a full restore on his Slowbro, which took it back up to max. And 2 Mega Drains later, I managed to take out his Slowbro. Up next, he's got his Marowak out, which is thankfully the Kanto Marowak and not the Alola Marowak, so Mega Drain did almost take it out in one hit, considering the fact that it's now weak to Grass, which also stopped Victory Bell's HP back up to top. I didn't expect it to have Fire Punch. Thankfully it only did about 1/4 health. He'd restock Marowak's health with another full restore. Mega Drain would take Marowak back down to red, and then because I outspeed again, I'd hit it with another Mega Drain to take out Marowak. I switched into Lickitung as he switched into Jolteon, because I figured I could probably hit Jolteon hard with an Ice Beam. It did outspeed me with a Thunder, which took me down to quite a lot of health. Took me down by quite a lot of health. Ice Beam didn't do anywhere near as much as I thought it would. Hit me with another Thunder, which took out my Lickitung. So I decided to switch back into Victory Bell and tanked another Thunder from Jolteon. I have never had this much luck as Trace is having with Thunder, hitting this many times. A Poison Jab later took Jolteon down to 0 HP, down goes Jolteon, and just like that, I've defeated Trace using a team picked out for me by a TikTok filter. I was dreading this challenge when I first took it. When I started seeing the Pokemon that it was giving me, Spearow, Krabby, Charmander, most of the team were in their first form, not just not fully evolved, in their first form, with only 2 fully evolved Pokemon, those being Lickitung and Victory Bell. So I was a bit hesitant about taking up this challenge. Kakuna was almost useless, except for in a very specific circumstance. But I managed to get through this challenge quite easily. I did not want to level up all these Pokemon to level 100 and make it too easy for myself. I figured that between level 70 and 80 was probably where I want it to be. But there it is. I managed to do the challenge. Lickitung, Spearow, Krabby, Victory Bell, Kakuna, and Charmander, the team picked out for me by a TikTok filter, have beaten the Elite Four in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. If you have enjoyed this video, please leave a comment in the comment section below and subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to leave a like as well. Everything like that helps with the algorithm. I'm a small-time YouTuber and any and all support is greatly appreciated. Also, head on over to twitch.tv/JamesTheThunder and go follow me on there, where I live stream multiple times a week, although I have no set schedule because I never stick to one anyway. I do try and stream multiple times a week. I stream a variety of games, as you can see, all sorts of games that I've streamed recently over on Twitch, the link for which will be in the description below. I've been James the Thunder, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.